Live from Moscow, this is Inquisition with Christopher Emms on today's News Talk, TNT Radio.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon from sunny Moscow. Sometimes sunny, always Moscow. But yeah, it's beautiful weather we're having here, which is great. And my goodness, what a show we've got for you today. I mean, yesterday was pretty powerful. If anyone heard Masha's story, who we spoke to yesterday, and just the incredible work that she's done. I did fulfill my promise, everyone. I did donate my show fee yesterday to Masha. So if you so wish to, do feel free. They could really do with the help over there. But today we've got someone who's incredibly close to my heart. It's a lady called Radha Stirling. Radha is an incredibly special person. She is one of the only people in the world that really stands up for people that are arbitrarily detained around the world. You guys can check out my story online. You just put my name into a Google search and you'll find everything. But Radha was there from the very day that I was detained and is still with me right now, helping me and helping so many other people that are unjustly treated by the empire. She's representing all sorts of people, namely right now Tara Reid, but I won't give away too much because I'm sure that she'll want to tell us sort of all the people that she's represented in the past and all the people that she's representing now. Great. So without further ado, let's hop in. Radha, are you there?
Yes, I am. I didn't know this was an Inquisition, though, Chris. It's making me a little bit nervous, but always good to hear your chirping voice.
It makes everyone a bit nervous, but I don't think that's really what we're doing. Maybe we should rename the show. But the powers that be thought it was quite a funny one because they know me and they know, if anything, I'm not really an inquisitor. So maybe
it depends on the guest.
Oh, it may depend on the guest. Right now, everyone's been so friendly. So Radha, I mean, I think you heard, I've sort of bigged you up at the beginning of the show here. So as I said, I mean, I owe you my life. That's the truth. Yeah, but it's true, Radha. I mean, I owe you my life. You've helped me. You helped me. You continue to help me, and you help so many others. But maybe just for people that don't know who you are, perhaps we can first talk about exactly who is Radha Stirling. Where does Radha Stirling come from? Because obviously, from your accent, you live in London, but it's a different accent than mine. And how did you end up doing what you do? And actually, what is it that you do?
You know, that's interesting because I was just about to say that I've done a lot of work in the Gulf in the area of human rights, and because of that work is the reason that I met you due to your detention in Saudi Arabia. Even though it had nothing at all to do with them doing anything wrong to you, it came down to the United States. But so I started out a long time ago. I grew up in Australia and moved over to London, I think, when I was about 19 years old. And I was doing a lot of work in the broadcast industry with Endemol. And one of my colleagues there was detained in Dubai. I led the media and legal campaign that facilitated his release. And as a result of that, we started a website, detainedindubai.org. And after his case hit the international media, more and more people in similar situations asked if I could help them because there was no one helping anyone facing issues in Dubai. And of course, over the years, we dealt with thousands of cases. It also drew me into extradition cases, usually with the UAE requesting extradition of someone perhaps unfairly. And that also exposed me to the issue of Interpol abuse, and that's the Interpol Red Notice database being misused by countries, and obviously not just the UAE, but as you very well know, countries like America, Western nations who have also been abusing the pay-to-play organization. So over the years, the sort of Dubai-focused organization just naturally expanded as a result of people from other areas just asking me for help as well. And that was Qatar, that was Saudi. And then obviously now that has expanded to, you know, people facing issues coming from any country. It could be Korea, it could be the US or European countries. So it's just really become a general organization who helps in cases where people are being either victimized by a state, subject to state harassment or Interpol abuse, or alternatively, they could be unfairly pursued by authorities, unfairly prosecuted or charged with a crime that they haven't committed. And overall, where it's going, I mean, we've over the years, we've campaigned a lot for governmental and policy change when it comes to, for example, about 14 years ago, I went out to Canberra, Australia, to Parliament to lobby that the extradition treaty they were signing would be considered to insert human rights provisions in there, so that if a country was requesting the extradition of someone, Australia would have to say, okay, what is the human rights situation there? We can't just extradite people without these protections. So on a kind of policy and legislative lobbying perspective, we've been doing a lot of work on the Interpol and Extradition and trying to really change the way that countries deal with that. We're also lobbying against universal jurisdiction, which is something that can affect anyone, as you well know, and larger issues that we hope will certainly change things in the long term and protect more people, because it seems that no one's really pushing back against this. Even lawyers are actually supporting things like universal jurisdiction, or the ability of a country like the United States to be able to extradite someone who's not even an American citizen, who hasn't even been to America. And for some reason, there's a lot of lawyers supporting that, which I think is a huge human rights issue. And so we're kind of trying to push back against that and make sure that these abuses will hopefully stop over time.
I mean, the point you're making about your universal jurisdiction, as you know, Radha, it's something very close to my heart, having been the victim of it. But I mean, you make the point of Australia. I mean, the case of Julian Assange is obviously the most public and prolific, but I know you work with a lot of people that don't necessarily get that press coverage and PR that, fortunately, resources like yourself and your team are there to do. I mean, for me, you're sat in London, I'm British. For me, it's just the greatest travesty that Julian Assange is sat in Belmarsh prison, having committed no crime under UK law whatsoever, having just committed the crime of being a journalist. All of the people that gave him the information that were prosecuted and then sentenced and then served time in US prison. I mean, even Chelsea Manning, for example, was given a pardon by Obama, and yet he's still sat in jail. To me, it doesn't make any sense that that's still going on. I mean, do you have any contact with Assange's team being based in London? Do you get involved in anything on that side of things at all?
I mean, certainly I have submitted some things to Stella Assange just on the issue of the fact that, if he was in the United Kingdom or Venezuela at the time, or wherever it happens to be, and the US says he's committed a crime, it should be the country where he's physically present, where he's actually prosecuted as a non-US citizen, as someone who didn't commit any crimes in the United States. So if Britain wants to prosecute him and he's in Britain for the same crimes, then they should do so. But the US should not be able to bring him to America, where he never submitted to American jurisdiction. So that's a real issue that I think the UK is facing at the moment. And it's one of the reasons that you personally didn't feel safe coming back to the United Kingdom, because you've seen what's happened with Assange. You've seen that the UK is willing to lose their sovereignty, in a sense, surrender their sovereignty to the United States, simply because they're a close ally and they're quite bullish. So the US, technically, on a legal framework, should be actually lobbying Britain to see whether Julian Assange has committed a crime in Britain, and then ask Britain to prosecute him. But they should not be asking for the extradition. And it's quite shocking that it's got even as far as it has, not just on the level of the jurisdiction element, which should not be approved by any court. And that should be challenged through European human rights courts. And I know that they're trying their best to raise it to the highest levels, but it looks like the UK is quite willing to surrender him to the United States. But not only should they be looking at the jurisdiction
and trying.
Absolutely, and never giving up. But not only should they be looking at that, they should be looking at what is the human rights situation in America, because the UK won't extradite people if there is a risk that their human rights will be violated. And that's why they've repeatedly declined extradition requests to the UAE, because of the poor human rights record. But what we're seeing in America are some quite shocking reports on exactly the prisons that, someone like Julian Assange would be going to, or you, for example, in New York. We've looked at these human rights issues, and the UK completely ignores them when it's coming from a powerhouse like America, but hones in on them when it's coming from perhaps the Middle East or Turkey or Egypt. So it's a two-tier system, and I can only say that is just because of the friendly alliance that we have with the US, and that is just not a balanced way to decide legal cases.
I totally agree with you. And we were victim to that, weren't we? And in my case, I mean, I was in Saudi Arabia detained by the Saudi government, and the British embassy didn't once come and see me in prison. They didn't once come and see me under house arrest. And I remember you and I just trying to get hold of them. And we got basically a Saudi employee. She was a lovely lady, but we got a Saudi employee from the British embassy. Not even one diplomat ever reached out to speak to us whatsoever. It was really shocking in my case. But yeah, I don't really know what much more we can say on that topic. I mean, it's just completely profoundly wrong in every way. But it just seems like the UK government never stands up for it. Now, you've been doing this for a long time, Radha. Was there a point where there was a legislative change in the UK, for example? Let's just use the UK as the example, where it became so easy for the United States to manipulate the judicial system?
No, it was just really the sense of the US pursuing a particular political persecution so much that the UK has felt that they don't want to say no to the US because it would just damage relationships too much. And, it's all fair and well for us to say our judicial system is separate from our administrative, but it's clearly not true, is it? I mean, we can absolutely see that the judges are under extreme political pressure. But even when it gets to, someone like Priti Patel, who had the ability to veto the extradition, and she still lets it go through. So it just, it's quite shocking. And it's also the precedent element of it. I don't think people, the average person really understands what a case like this means. We talk about Julian Assange and journalism and what that means for journalists and free speech, but also like a case like yours or the other people who the US or other countries have tried to extraterritorially apply their laws towards. I don't think people realize that if you offend a government, whether it's China, whether it's the US or whoever it is, we're setting a precedent saying that even if you're not in the country, you could be extradited, and it could be under the most frivolous of allegations coming from the United States. For example, it could be you incited something on the internet or you said something on Facebook, and suddenly you're over in the United States serving a prison sentence. I mean, this just makes no sense. And we should be fighting against it because we should be able to see the kind of consequences that this could have just for the average person.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, it's for me, the biggest shock is just the amount of people that reach out to me that are in similar situations all over the world. We can take that from I get messages from as far away as St. Kitts, in the Caribbean, all the way to the UK, Germany, Europe, especially over what's going on here in Russia at the moment, where anyone that seems to speak out against the Western narrative is being targeted. I mean, yesterday I had dinner with a young lady called Alina Lipp, who's very interesting, who's a journalist who was indicted by the German government as a German again for spreading propaganda and lies. All she was doing was holding her camera up in Donetsk and Donbass since 2014 and showing the point of view of the people there. That's not a crime, but apparently the German government decided that it was, and they decided that they wanted to put her in prison. They also went after her family. Her father lost his whole business. And the whole family ended up having to seek asylum, like me, here in Russia. So I think these things are just a constant barrage, and thankfully because of people like you, there's at least some voice and some support out there for people going through it that they can reach out to. But anyway, let's take a little break here now, Radha, and everyone at home as well. and then when we're back after the wonderful people that pay for you and I to have this conversation, let's dig into a bit of your most notorious, or rather than notorious, most landmark, we should use, cases that you've worked on. So this is Inquisition, here with me, Christopher Emms, and the wonderful, the infamous Radha Stirling here on TNT Radio.